The Beer Buzz podcast is sponsored by Tavor, one-of-a-kind brews you can't get anywhere else. Fill your fridge with unique craft beers you can't find locally. Access highly rated IPAs, stouts, sours, and more. Craft beer delivery made easy. New users who spend $25 in the Tavor app will get a $10 credit towards their next purchase. Use code BEERBUZZ, that's BEERBUZZ, at checkout. Visit Tavor at www.tavor.com and find the Tavor app on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Welcome to the Beer Buzz Podcast, the podcast that brings the craft beer community together. Join us as we dive into the world of craft beer, exploring its rich history, unique flavors, and the passionate individuals who brew it. Each episode, we'll sit down with the industry experts, brewers, and beer enthusiasts to discuss the latest trends, share stories, and uncover hidden gems in the craft beer scene. Whether you're a seasoned beer connoisseur or just starting your craft beer journey, this podcast is for you. Get ready to pull up a chair, grab a cold one, and immerse yourself in the captivating world of craft beer. So tune in and let's talk beer. Welcome to the Beer Buzz Podcast. I am your host, Dakota. Joining me, my co-host from the great state of Wisconsin. What's going on, Pete?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
So we got a really special guest today. We've been talking to them for about, it seems like a couple months now. We are joined by Mike and Dolly from the Bar Book. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks.
So first things first, let's dive into this. I became, I would say, I noticed you guys based off of Mike's direct message to us, and I couldn't be more floored. I use an app called Untapped because I'm a beer guy. And to finally see that there's another application out there that is being released to the airwaves that's not just beer was very exciting. So let's dive in. What's the Bar Book? What's it about? Kind of how did you guys start this up?
Yeah, so kind of similar to what you're talking about, man. We started, maybe 2 years ago, we started early conversations, right? Starting to look for things, trying to figure out what might we want. I was retiring from the military and I was starting to collect a lot of bottles for spirits, trying to figure out, what ones I wanted to keep. And I didn't know how to keep track of them and didn't know which ones I liked and things like that. So I started calling friends and family. Dolly talked to me a lot about this and we went through different, flavors that we might like here and there. Anyway, cut that all short, we looked for an app that might help us put all this together, keep a record, find flavors, suggest different bottles, whatever. We just couldn't find it. Again, back and forth, some conversations between Dolly and I, brought in some friends to kind of bounce some ideas off. And about a year ago, we decided to move forward and kick some designs together and build this app that would do everything you're talking about. It matches flavor profiles from bottles with the flavor profiles you like, and then suggests more. So it's not just rating and reviewing your favorite beer or spirits or liquors or whatever. It is actually taking that information and then suggesting what's next.
So I have to pause you there because I feel like, at least I asked the question. I see things all the time and I'm like, man, I wish I could fix this. But what made you take that extra step and be like, I'm going to drive into this entrepreneurship. I'm going to go just hands deep. What made you jump and be like, we need to make this app and we need to make it happen ASAP?
You mean besides the fact that his wife said when you retire, you need another job?
No, I mean, so the obvious straight up first answer is fixing this problem was never the goal, fixing it for everybody else, right? Originally, It just started as we wanted something for us. There had to be something, right? And so we did a lot of checking of finding, did somebody else build this? Because there had to be, right? You just don't come off this with an idea that nobody else hasn't tried somewhere.
Sure.
And honestly, we couldn't find it. We searched everywhere and couldn't find it. And then as I'm thinking about jumping off the bridge and kind of going into entrepreneurship, I needed the support of her. Dolly is the reason that I'm able to do all that. So, with her support and with kind of bouncing some ideas and maybe a kick every now and then, we decided to contact developers and start building this thing.
And if I
So
can add in, I'm sorry, if I can add to that. So before Michael and I got together, I used to be more of a wine drinker, right? And so everybody knows that there are apps galore for, figuring out what wines you like and, keeping track of those. And so when he started talking about spirits and beer and all the other stuff, compiled together, like you said, I was like, there's got to be something out there like that. And when we couldn't find it, I was like, okay, well, you found your second calling. Like, this is what you need to do, because I think it's awesome that
so
we can just do
it
this.
sounds like Dolly, you were a resident sommelier before you jumped into the beer and
Oh my
spirits.
gosh. I've been told many a time I am a wine snob. I own that badge. I proudly own that badge, right?
And tequila.
And tequila. So that's the whole thing with the bar book, since it's spirits, I got Michael onto the tequila bandwagon because he's a corn-fed boy from Indiana. So there's no tequila there. There's
Beer and bourbon.
yeah, beer, bourbon, and whiskey. So we're trying to open everybody's aperture and find out, new flavors and brands.
All right, so early on, your idea, it couldn't have happened overnight. So let's talk about the grueling day in and day out of what it took to come to fruition. Obviously, I think we're close to the finish line. So let's talk about the early days of kind of the early development of the bar book.
Yeah. So early on, it starts out with, what does building an app even look like? And we had no idea what we were talking about. We knew kind of what we wanted it to do, and we knew kind of what we wanted the end to look like. But getting from thought to end was a process we were very unfamiliar with. Even something as simple, which you guys, I'm sure, have dealt with, which is designing your logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could show you hundreds and hundreds of pages of draft artwork that I sketched, that we talked with artists about before we finally got the designer to give us one that she picked and helped pick out. So the logo behind us is actually, Dolly's, kind of shaping and molding of the idea. And that's it. That's where we are. So, I mean, things like that, they don't happen overnight. You're right. They take time. And then when we started building products, so you have to think every product and flavor profile in there is built by hand. We started with the products we know and we love ourselves. So there are the, smaller brands that we used to drink or still drink. They're the bigger brands that we love to find. And then we just kind of expanded from there. People telling us, hey, did you add this one yet? Hey, what about that one? And then we just keep growing and building this database over and over and over.
So I have to ask, because I'm a chef through and through. I've been a chef professionally for 11 years. And
Oh my God, I love you already.
I would say the world of being a chef, it's all about connections and who you know and what you know, and kind of the collaboration. So going into the nitty gritty and getting this app started and whatnot, did you collaborate? Did you go to different trade shows or whatnot? Did you talk with people, different vendors? Like, how did you kind of get yourself on the ground floor?
So, I mean, we're doing that now, right? So we're doing those kind of things now. So to begin, we started with a concept, an idea, and building. And so those flavors and those different things from the different brands, we're literally doing data mining on their sites. And then, let's say we build a product, whatever beer is your favorite that you're drinking tonight. We build that product on the app, build it back in the database. And then what we'll do is we'll send an email back to the company and say, hey, small business beer, we just built your beer on the bar book. Take a look at your flavors, take a look at your profiles, and make sure that we're representing you accurately. Because one of the things we want to do probably the best at, a lot of these features work great, but the best thing we want is to match the right flavors. And as a chef, you understand that the descriptions of the flavors of your food are what matter. And so that's the same thing with the beer and the whiskeys and everything else we try. We need those descriptions of those flavors because that's how our algorithm works and matches other pieces. So that's really the connections.
So I've seen a lot on your page about going to different breweries, going to different distilleries, and kind of showcasing them. Let's kind of dive into some of the applications, or at least the application itself, like what people can expect whenever they sign up and create a profile. So is it kind of similar to like an Untappd? Can you post reviews? Can you post, hey, I checked in here at this distillery, this winery? Can you do stuff like that?
Can
right?
people
So
can people follow, like, Untapped? People are following reviewers. They're checking in and like, what is this guy drinking? What is he having? What's he reviewing? Is it? Do you have something similar to that, or?
yes, yeah. So absolutely, Pete. There's so as it sits right now today, it is rate, review, and flavor match. That is as it is today. There are a couple features that we have in the background that we're fine tuning and tweaking that will get turned on over the next week, month. And one of those is essentially what you're talking about is a news feed with following and tagging and things like that. It exists on the web app version of this, but it does not exist yet on the app stores because again, there's a review process you have to go through with Apple and Google before they can publish. So it does exist and it is coming. It's just, we've got to fine tune some pieces before that comes out. But that is the goal, right? So you need to be able to rate it, review it, like it. It builds into your flavor profile. It suggests what you might like next. But if I also find out that, Dakota or Pete, you guys have similar flavor profiles or we like a lot of the same things, I can see what you've already tried and see what you've already rated and what you've already reviewed, because that's going to help me, well, I know if Dakota likes it, I'm going to like it too, because we've drank a lot of same things.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that.
Touching on the profiles, I did notice I was playing around on the app a little bit on the web-based app and saw that you can different profiles can be created from different bartenders, and then the bartender has their own profile and you can see certain cocktails or mixed drinks that they've made. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things we started out early on was reaching out to different bartenders that have their own signature cocktails or their own signature drinks. And we asked a lot of them, hey, do you want to share it and put it into our recipe menu that we're starting to build? And, a lot of those guys that you see on there share theirs and said, yeah, put it out there. I'll share it and put my name out there. That's something I came up with. And we love doing that. I mean, the bar book is, if you think of it as a tool to level the playing field across the alcohol industry, when you're talking about the small bartender or the small bar or the craft brewery, craft distillery, we want them to get just much airtime and attention as, a Buffalo Trace or a Budweiser, right? And not picking on those guys because everybody loves them too. Like they're top sellers in their industries. But
love Buffalo Trace.
Right. But you gotta say that they've got a huge advertising budget, right? They can pay for social media profiles and followers and, make bottles that are, allocated and rare and all this stuff. And people chase and sit out in parking lots for days. What we're trying to do is not only show you those, but show you the ones that taste just like those, so you don't have to wait in a parking lot all day.
See, and I love that you're kind of advocating for the smaller guys, right? Because yeah, you can drink Buffalo Trace all day long. It's delicious. Now, obviously, I'm not a brown liquor guy. I love vodka and rum and whatnot. But the fact that the guys that aren't necessarily getting the major airtime, like a Buffalo Trace or a Tito's or whatnot, I think is super special because in Missouri we have a lot of local distilleries. There's one called 1420 that is actually owned and operated by a brewery. They kind of switched and pivoted, and they were like, hey, we're gonna do beer, but we're also gonna jump into the distillery game. So I kind of think this app would fit their profile immensely. It would kind of open up a lot of things because not only are you showcasing their beer, but you're showcasing their distillers and kind of showcasing them as a beverage group. I love that.
You are essentially tagging what we're going to next, right? So right now, today, we're doing everything we just talked about with Pete. What's coming next that the developers are already kind of in the works of building is the business to business piece. So you mentioned Untapped. Untapped does this for beer companies, right? If you're a small craft brewery, you can buy access to put your stuff on their page and build your own, back end site, if you will, with all your beers in load. Every time you publish something or, create something new, you can put it on the site, and share it with all your followers. We're going to do the same thing, but now we've got spirits and liqueurs and seltzers and ciders and beers and all of it. So everything but wine. We're going to do the same thing for those kind of guys. So the place you're talking about in Missouri that just can't get out there, right? They just can't get the reach. We're going to be able to put that on there. And then, on top of not to be able to get the advertising reach, there's prohibition laws that still kind of prohibit them from selling to different states or mailing to different states or even, whatever with their different alcohol. Beer is so much easier than distilled spirits. So this is going to kind of open up that door and share it with a wider audience.
And if I can chime in, the other cool thing about this is that I'm a KU graduate, so I'm going to forgive you about talking about Missouri. But depending on where you are, where you're from, some things are harder to find than others. So we live in Northern Virginia. So yes, everybody loves Buffalo Trace, right? But it's kind of hard to find that around here. So if we can help people find other spirits, whether it's vodka, tequila, whiskey, bourbon, whatever, then we'll help them find that, so that you're not spending, top dollar for a bottle that you may only get every 6 months, where there's something local in your area that you could drink every day.
I'm gonna pivot off of this, but I do want to definitely touch base. I cannot believe I just found out you're a KU grad. I'm gonna understand where you're coming from, but definitely we know where the hatred starts. I think this is because there's a lot of liquor stores. There's one in Wisconsin that I like to go to called Ray's, where obviously they sell a vast majority of craft beer in different distilleries. So like our different distilled spirits. Is that something you guys try to attack too? Is going to different liquor stores and kind of using your profile and being like, hey, like this is a place where can they be put on the map? Can the local liquor stores be a part of this as well?
So yeah, that is absolutely part of the next phase that we're building is doing that with the liquor stores, right? It's a little more complex than a brand, obviously, because it's much more fluid in their stock and what they have on. But yeah, so to dive deeper into what you're talking about, we not only want to do the craft distilleries, craft breweries, liquor stores, we want to do the bars. Because as you mentioned earlier, we're talking about cocktails and what bartenders make here. So imagine that instead of just rating, a Buffalo Trace bottle, and I know we're giving Buffalo Trace a ton of airtime, and I love those guys too. But what if you could rate, Pete's Old Fashioned at your favorite local Wisconsin bar, right? And so now you've got Pete's Bar that has this Old Fashioned, and people can go in there, and it's a recipe, it's a menu they follow all the time. And you can now rate that cocktail and know if that's one of the best old fashions you've actually had, or if somebody makes one better somewhere else, right? So that's kind of where we're going. We want the whole thing, because it's about the user on the back end, right? It's what you want to know.
So I do want to know. So we touched on the user. And that's what I'm curious about. So has there been feedback? Or is that something you guys look at daily? Is kind of like what kind of things you want to pivot? Is there something not working? Maybe we change it up on this end. Like, how often do you kind of look at not even user feedback, but just kind of just the user in general?
Every day.
Yeah, constantly.
Says the grouchy wife that never sees her husband. Every day of every hour of every minute.
Yes. So she's half right with all of that, but no, that's true. We do. We care a lot about what the user wants. Ironically, I'm having a discussion now with a group of individuals that is trying to ask me if I'd be interested in, looking at a future venture that would open it up in another direction, even bigger, talking to a home brewer population. And I'm not sure if that's a real thing, like, feasible and whatever, but man, I am into having the conversation and, definitely talking to them and finding out what I can do better for them.
So this is going to be a huge left turn, but I'm definitely curious. So you're veteran owned company, which I think is great. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for all your service.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
What made the pivot to the hospitality industry? I'm curious. Like, I mean, what happened where you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get out and thank you for all your service. And I'm like, all right, now it's time to start an app. Like, how was that transition? Kind of what kind of led to that transition?
Oh, man. So like I said, when we started having the conversations about building an app and started going down the road of development, I don't know, I guess it just kind of followed its natural course, right? So initially it was, let's build it, let's do it. I'm not sure how much time this is going to take. Let's just, see where it goes. And then the ball started rolling and it picked up steam. And the next thing you know, this is kind of, taking a lot of energy and time to keep building. I mean, I've had, my dad was an entrepreneur. He had his own construction business. So there's a lot of that comes from there. Dolly's a big push, and she's, a huge supporter of everything that's keeping this going. So, I mean, there really hasn't been any real restriction to doing it. It's just been, let's keep moving. We can kind of see what we want, and it's getting there closer and closer every day. So, I mean, we're still excited about it and excited to do it. That's why.
I was definitely
Right.
curious. I was like, did this happen like during deployment when you're like, you know what, I'm going to create an app and this is going to be outrageous? Because I'm like, that would be one hell of a way to go.
But that's actually part of it. So anybody that's familiar with the military community, depending on what rank you are and where you're from, right? You start drinking spirits and beer and all the other stuff, and you start from the bottom shelf. So for everybody who's listening to this, everybody's heard of military special. It's horrible. Like, I mean, you can rate it on the bar book. But it's, it will make you grow hair on your chest, right? And so when we started doing this, Michael, did not know that much about spirits, and he's buying stuff that we probably wouldn't recommend ourselves, right? And then you have me drinking other things on this side. And so that coincided with, hey, he's retired. He wants to do something different, and he can, reach a broader audience. But hey, it all started with his military background.
So you're the one that brings the extraordinary palate, is what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's no question, no doubt. I mean, if you were to give me, two different beers, I will tell you whether I like them or don't, or, even whiskey. I'll tell you I like it or I don't. I cannot tell you the nuanced flavors. I remember as I'm building some of these things, reading, oh, this is a hoppy IPA that's got grapefruit and orange and, pomelo and all these different things. And I'm like, it tastes good, but that's all she could tell you, oh, there's also a hint of lime in there.
Yeah. Yes.
See, I feel like I'm going to dive into the bar book head first because I love beer. Okay. I'm a very, very big beer connoisseur. I'll drink just about anything except for stouts. I won't let Pete touch on that, but that's for another podcast. But
I'll keep my mouth
just
shut.
enjoy vodka, and I can't seem to stray away and to go to different spirits. Now, my brother-in-law is a beer guy, but he loves whiskey, right? And he's been trying to get me to try certain whiskeys, and we're pulling things off the shelf. I'm like, oh yeah, it's nice bourbon, Kentucky bourbon. It's blah blah blah. So I'm like, I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at. And so he's like, oh yeah, it's great. But like for you guys, as experienced as you are in this game, kind of lead me down a path where you think I should start exploring in different liquors if you had to go from a base perspective.
Well, okay, so based on you saying that you like vodka, like Dakota, like I said, even though you mentioned Missouri, I kind of like you because I'm a vodka girl as well. So I would say start exploring vodkas. And when you go into different liquor stores and when you go into different restaurants, don't order what you normally order. Like, so I can tell you right now, if I want a dirty martini, it's going to be not gin, it's going to be vodka, it's going to be Grey Goose chilled to where you can ski across the top of it. That's how I tell the bartenders to make ski across. I wanted that icy to where I can ski across, right? Because as vodka gets warm, it doesn't have the same flavor taste. You don't enjoy it as much, right? But we were actually in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, I think it was. And we were in a restaurant and they did not have Grey Goose, which surprised the living heck out of me. And they said, oh, we want you to try this other vodka. What was the name of it again? 360, which you can't find in Virginia. And they're like, 360 has a similar profile to Grey Goose. And I'm like, whatever. And I will admit I was being snooty. I'm like, okay, I'm in Gatlinburg. They're just trying to sell me whatever, right? Tourist trap. And it was a great martini. And then we went to the liquor store the next day because we wanted to see what liquor and spirits and stuff were in Gatlinburg. And here's a bottle that has a similar profile to Grey Goose that was on the shelf for $13.
Damn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, and I know, depending on where you live, a bottle of vodka for $13 is not a good bottle of vodka.
Definitely not.
Right. But it was. And so I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So we bought a couple of bottles before we left. So what I would tell you, circling back is whatever your favorite vodka is, ignore it for a night and see what else is up there and just experiment. And you will be shocked at what you will find out there.
See, and I'm a big, so when I drink vodka, my vodka choice, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate. That's okay, keyboard warriors. Let me hear it. I'm a Tito's guy through and through. So when I go out and I get, I'll drink Tito's on the rocks, Tito's vodka, Tito's Red Bull, you name it with Tito's. It's like a Capri-Sun for, us kids. But when you have a different vodka, and I think this is a great thing to touch on, is like when you have different vodkas, you can definitely taste the difference. Like there's a difference in each one of those things. So like it's really hard to, I guess, train your palate in a way, because I feel like you guys are way more experienced than I am. That's why I'm kind of asking you guys. It's like, how do you untrain your palate to be like, no, this is okay too? Because like when I go to Vegas a lot, and they'll be like, hey, I want Tito's whatever, and they're like, we don't have certain bars like, oh, we only have Grey Goose, or we have I can't remember.
Belvedere.
Yes, and they're like, sure, whatever. I'm just trying to get hammered. They're like, yeah, throw it down, and then you're like, tasting it, and you're like, this isn't. It's right, but it's not right. This isn't what I'm used to. So, like, how do you untrain your palate to try different things?
So you untrain it by having an open mind. I'm sounding like my mom right now, right? But I would say if you can find vodka tastings, or if you just want to experiment one night. So you're telling me you like Tito's. Michael's laughing because I can't stand Tito's. I think it has an aftertaste. As an aftertaste, it's not that smooth to me as like other vodkas would be, right? And
Sure.
Then also, depending on what you're using that vodka for, one of the reasons, and I don't want anybody from Tito's coming after me when I say this, but depending on what you're drinking also affects the vodka that you're drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to have a Bloody Mary, I'm not spending the money on Grey Goose to put in a Bloody Mary, because I'm going to taste more of the tomato juice and like all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So it could also be like you experimenting with what vodka cocktails that you like, and that will help you develop a flavor for different vodkas. Because what I would use a Tito's or an Absolute or a Smirnoff for is not the same of what I would use a Belvedere or a Grey Goose or a 360 for as well, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, is that's kind of what the bar book app, it kind of gives you the flavor notes of certain liquors. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it does. It gives you so it'll tell you, what Tito says are the flavor notes of Tito's, right? It'll tell you exactly what that is. But what it'll also do is give you some other vodkas that have similar flavor notes, right?
Okay.
And it's not going to be 100% perfect, right? Because your palate is going to taste something a little bit different from it, but it will tell you if they have some of the same notes. And that's kind of where this will help you out. Is kind of looking for those nuanced flavors. Plus, where it'll help you is, vodka can be made from wheat, potato, rye, all these different things. Rye vodkas would be in one category where if you like it, you might like other ones like that. Potato vodkas similar, or wheat vodkas similar, right? So even just knowing that may help you go down which lane you like for vodkas.
And
yeah, because I hate going. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the same thing with countries. Like one of my favorite vodkas is Beluga vodka, but because of what's going on in the world right now, Virginia doesn't sell Russian vodkas anymore, right? You can't find them in any of the ABC stores. So that forces you to find different profiles and find different vodkas to drink as well.
Yeah, because like I hate going to a bar and like, I'm going to show my age. I'm 27. I don't necessarily know all that much about liquor. So when you go to a bar and they're like, hey, what do you want? I'm like, yeah, I'll take Tito's. And like, I don't have Tito's. Like, I just immediately like, I can bust. I'm like, okay, yeah, just, throw me something that is going to taste good. Because now I don't know. So like maybe using that, now I'll be able to pull out the bar book. Like, hey, like you guys got this, like by chance, or like even like, using a profile and be like, hey, it looks like you guys got this, this, and this. Let's make a concoction. So now I don't have to look like an idiot.
You can start learning other flavors that kind of match what you like. And like you said, the goal is that it's going to learn. It's going to take time. It's got to learn you and kind of learn what you like. But as it learns you, it'll even, share outside of that field, right? So you like so many certain flavors in the vodka tequila realm. Well, you start hitting notes that also tie into beer, or you start hitting flavor notes that also tie into a whiskey. So Dolly tells a story about, she's a wine drinker and she met a bartender in Louisville, Kentucky, that based off her wine palate was able to find her a whiskey, bitters, and build her a cocktail based off that profile.
Yeah. Like it was crazy because I hated, you can talk to anybody who knew me before 2019, and I hated whiskey and bourbon. And I walked into a bourbon bar in Louisville and they're like, what do you want? And I said, do you have vodka? And they looked at me, that was crazy. And they're like, you need to try, a bourbon or do an old fashioned. And I was like, I don't want to try that. I think it's gross.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, have you ever had tequila? And I said, yes. And she goes, did you ever have a bad experience with tequila? And I said, of course, everybody has, right? And she goes, okay, well, you had a bad experience with bourbon. It's time for you to try that again, like you tried with tequila. And she literally interviewed me. And she made an old fashioned. This is why I still love Russell's 10, Reserve to this day.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. She made it with that because I had a bad experience. I hope I'm getting the story right with Wild Turkey. And I think Wild Turkey makes Russell's, right?
They do.
Yeah. Right. And so
Russell's makes Wild Turkey.
Russell's makes Wild Turkey. But she made an old fashioned with Russell's 10 and with a certain kind of bitter and everything else. And if I didn't have to drive that night, I would have sat there all night and just drank them over and over and over again. That's how young I was. And that's how I got turned on to bourbon.
Okay,
or whiskey.
so now my question is, how do I get turned on to bourbon and whiskey? Because I feel like I kind of want to do the same thing. If it works for you, for everybody else.
You need to have a good old fashioned, man.
You need to have a good old fashioned. And not all old fashions are created equal. There are lots of people out there who make horrible old fashions. Like just
True.
Yeah, you got to find the right thing. But if there is a bourbon bar near you or a bar that specializes in whiskeys and bourbons, because I know all whiskeys are bourbons, but bourbons aren't whiskeys. Like, so don't yell at me for saying that. But people who have that menu, those are usually the bartenders that you can talk to, and they can make you an awesome old fashioned.
So a bar book, right? If you were to actually look up what is a bar book, right? A bar book is a bartender's intellectual property. And it used to be as simple as a notebook. It was a notebook that they had. So the bartenders we're talking about would have some similar notebook, or now it's a phone or a tablet or whatever, right? But it's where they keep their notes of different flavors. It's where they keep their, basically their intellectual property, if you will. It's where they keep that stuff. And then eventually when a person comes in who doesn't know what they want, they can pull from that. And it may be memory, it may be an actual book, but they pull from that and can design a drink that is going to fit what you like. And that's kind of where the thought process of the bar book came from, is we want you to have your own in the palm of your hand. And so if you're looking to go to bourbon, right, I'm going to go to bourbon. I would tell you, go to a bourbon bar first, just like Dolly said. Go somewhere that has a wide selection, because don't buy the bottles. You may not like the bottles, and it's very expensive to try bottles. Go somewhere where you can do tastings. A lot of places will give you even a flight if you want that, where they'll do little either 1/2 ounce or 1 ounce pours or however, and build you a flight. And sip them, taste them, use the app and start rating what you like and don't like. And that will help shape what other products you might like.
Because like if I'm going to cocktail, like and don't come after me, keyboard warriors. Like my go-to cocktail would be a Negroni. But then like going in, I feel like I'm gonna get some hate for sure. It's not well liked by a lot of people.
So bitter.
I'm a bitter person.
Okay.
But so going in and like, trying to explore, I feel like, would it be better to have it mixed with something first, other than, because like when I try out of the bottle or have buddies pour me, hey, you should try this whiskey, they're giving me a sip and I'm like, man, this is horrible. Like I can taste just nothing but wood and smoky. It's spicy. I'm immediately kind of like turned off by it, so I'm like, I don't want to go into this with a bad, outlook. So
so Negroni, let's go back to that first, right? The first
I don't even know what that is, by the way. Maybe I should know. I don't know.
It's a famous cocktail. But I would tell you the saying that is always true everywhere you go is the best cocktail, the best bourbon, the best beer, whatever you want to fill in the blank, right? The best whatever is the one you like to drink. And it's the way you like to drink it. So it really doesn't matter if you want to, this is, almost being crucified for saying this, but if you want to buy a $2,500 bottle of bourbon and mix it with Coke and it's your bottle, do what you want.
Don't do that. I'm telling you right now. Don't you dare.
But it's do what you want.
Unless-
I mean, really, it is
Unless
how you like it.
Deathbed, don't you dare.
Yeah, let me get a 30-year. Let me get a 30-year Pappy Van Winkle. Let me just go and grab some Coke off the shelf. Wow.
Yeah, that would be kind of difficult to pull. Is if you've got something like that. But I mean, but the saying holds true, right? You try what you like, and you just whether you like it or don't like it, it's your profile, man. You just got to do what you do.
All right, so I have to ask. This is the Beer Buzz podcast, so we're going to talk about beer for a second. What is in your glass, or what have you been drinking for the last 25, 30 minutes?
So I pulled this out. I got this in the local area here, and I was like, man, I got to try this because, something cool. At least the can art is pretty cool. I don't know if you see it.
Right. Against the grain.
Against the grain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had that.
So I'm an IPA drinker for, my dailies. Like, if I'm going to drink a beer,
There you go.
I much prefer citrus, hazy, juicy IPAs. I'm not the piney IPA kind of drinker, whatever. But yeah, I got 2 of them, so that's what's in my glass.
We're very similar.
Doing a beer podcast. I'm drinking beer.
Now I have to ask, because now that you said you're an IPA guy,
Yeah.
how do you feel about sour beers?
Sours. I like sours, depending on the fruit. I'm kind of,
Okay.
I go 50-50 on them, right? It's not an everyday thing. I definitely can't drink them every day, but there are some of them that, man, they're just good. It's almost like a candy beer that I've got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we have this debate almost every podcast because, again, I'm very biased in what I drink. Well, I like vodka. I'm going to stick with it. I like sour beers. That's probably what I'm going to drink. It's what's in my glass now. I got Tripping Animals. But
What flavor is
it's this one is crazy. It's called Limonada Rosada. It's a sour ale with raspberry, strawberry, and lime.
Okay, I can pull
So
that
again,
together.
it's
I like that.
it's fruity, but it's nice and citrusy. It doesn't feel like you're, I don't know. I don't even know what I want to compare it to.
I like that one too.
Pretty solid. First time having it too.
But yeah, it's a nice beer. And when I say I'm a sour guy, it's because of this guy's, like, it's Pete's problem. He turned me on to sour beers. I was a beginner IPA guy. The first ever IPA I ever had was a Little Hazy by Sierra Nevada. It's a big brewery. Then we start going into craft brewery communities and trying different beers and whatnot. And I'm like, man, Sierra Nevada is dismal compared to what you're experiencing from around the world. But yeah, I just wanted to hear your take on sour beers because I feel like everybody else has a little preconceived notion. Is it a beer? Is it not a beer?
So I get mixed reviews when I talk to people about them too. Again, I try not to judge people on what they drink just because, again, I go back to drink what you like, whatever you prefer, man. You're drinking a beer, we're drinking a beer, but everybody's going to give each other a hard time over something, whether it's, beer or whiskey or tequila, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we look for that reason. It's part of the fun of drinking together.
So now I have to ask, well, before I go, Pete, you have anything to add to the group?
Oh, no. I'm just enjoying the talk about sour beers here because this guy up here, he doesn't, he talks about being a beer connoisseur up here, but he only drinks sour beers. I
mean, you guys are in the home. You are in the home of beers up there in Wisconsin. I've spent some time up there. There's a brewery up there. Tell me if you've been to Line and Kugel's?
Yeah, but I have. Yeah.
I love that place. I've been there.
I'm watching Peter's face. Yeah, no.
You don't like it?
Yeah, it's kind of like
it's average.
Yeah, thank you. So Dakota, when you talk about the keyboard warriors, when I moved from Kansas to Pennsylvania, people are like, "Oh my God, you've got to have Yingling. Yingling is so great. Yingling is the best beer ever." And then when I had it, I'm like, "This is the Budweiser of Pennsylvania. Like, there's nothing fancy about Yingling."
Yeah,
there isn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, but we'll have this conversation on a different podcast. But that's something we'll definitely discuss But like, no, I'm serious. So I've been born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, my entire life. I moved to Kansas City, Missouri, for 3 years. That was as far towards Kansas as I would ever want to be. Um, but when you drink beer down here, it's different from all around the country, right? So like Yingling used to be the beer that nobody could get in the Missouri area, and it was like I use this expression all the time in the kitchen. It's like cigarettes in prison. It's hard to get. So like
Which is, people like it because
exactly.
it's so hard to get.
if you like something and it's hard to get, again, I'm down here in Missouri. There's a beer that is distributed strictly in Wisconsin, or what it seems, by Nuclearis. It's called Spotted Cow.
Spotted Cow, yes, there you go.
So if we can't get the beer, of course, the supply and demand down here in the states that can't get it, it's like we're itching to grab it. It's like, oh my gosh, hey, you know somebody from Wisconsin? Can we get some Spotted Cow down here? No, it's 100% true. And people that obviously we're the biggest brewery in the United States, in Anheuser-Busch, but nobody itches to get Budweiser products. Nobody's like, hey, you got some of that Bud Light? You know, can you have some of the Busch for us? Nobody itches because it's just, it's like Schlitz, it's like Pabst, it's like, Colt 45 if we're going to go to malt liquor. But
and that happens with spirits as well. So before Michael retired, he was stationed in El Paso, and one of my favorite bourbons is Weller's. I don't care which one, green bottle, blue bottle, white bottle, whatever. We live in Northern Virginia. You cannot find a bottle of Weller's for less than $130. You just can't find it at all. And
that's the special reserve.
Like
so
the
special,
okay.
The special reserve isn't even the higher end one. Like it's the lower end one, and you can't find it for less than $130. However, he lives in El Paso, Texas, to where every time he would come to visit me, he would bring the 1.75 liters to me because in El Paso they're $40.
What?
Yeah.
See,
so it just depends on where you are. And because, like you said, supply and demand in Northern Virginia, DC area, you're paying top dollar for Weller's, where you can go to Texas and get it for $40.
That's like with Buffalo Trace too, because you're from Mike, you're from Indiana. I mean, Buffalo Trace is actually, I was just there not too long ago, and I went to Walmart, man, and Buffalo Trace was for like $23 on the shelf. $23? What the fuck? I was like stocking up, bro. Yeah. Come up to Wisconsin, they're like $50-$60 a bottle.
Yes, I have a friend right now who's he's going out to El Paso, Texas this week. He's actually driving out there now. He's going to do the Baton Death March Memorial March that they do out there every year, and I sent him all my spots from El Paso, and I was like, hey, while you're there, I'll buy 6. Like, just fill me a box of 6 bottles of Weller 175s and just bring me I'll buy them.
Nice.
He's like, if I got room in the truck.
Damn.
Mike sure knows a way to Dolly's heart. Hey, give me the 1.75 bottles. Hey, we're not messing around. Man, oh man, that's wild. I don't understand. And that's something that we've talked about constantly on the podcast. But in regards to beers, like, I'll get a beer of one of my favorite beers is Narrow Gauge OJ Rum, and they are strictly St. Louis brewery. They distribute, I think it's pretty much around the states that we border. So Illinois is the biggest one. So like if I'm driving through Illinois and I stop at a gas station, you can see that have craft beers. Like, oh, there's Narrow Gauge on the shelf. Not a big deal. But if you get Narrow Gauge anywhere else, like the supply and demand, they're gonna price that can. It would be like maybe $5.5, $4.5 for it down here in St. Louis. But if you go to Wisconsin, it's probably gonna be $10. It's the craziest thing about the beverage industry is like you can get a bottle of your favorite liquor in your home state or maybe a traveling state for $30, but then you go somewhere else and it's 100 and whatever, and you're like, maybe I should start drinking something else.
So again, that's the beauty of the bar book, and that's kind of why we've done. I mean, you guys are talking about the problem that we're hoping to create the solution for, right? And in Virginia, the problem isn't necessarily the price. The problem is the access, because everything is state controlled. They have a set price for them. So you can get Buffalo Trace at exactly what MSRP is, but you've got to wait for a bottle drop, which means if it drops at 5 p.m., you better be in line at 3 o'clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Waiting for it. Or if it drops, and they're going to open at 10 a.m., you better have camped out and have your chair in line. Literally, there's Facebook groups of guys camping out all night, in the cold, waiting for a bottle drop so they can try to get the first couple bottles of whatever. Granted, it's cheap, right? Cheap. It's MSRP. So it's much better than going somewhere else. But What if you didn't have to do that and you didn't have to wait in line and you could get the bottle that's got the same flavor profile and is, in most opinions, just as good, and it's probably local, so you're supporting a small business and a local business, and you can get it for the same price, and there's no waiting, right? Perfect one I'll give you an example of here in Virginia is there's and I'm not giving them a plug because they're paying me or anything, but I love the brand, is the Bowman Brothers down in Fredericksburg, Virginia. They make a fantastic bourbon. And
it's yummy, yummy deliciousness.
It is a very good bourbon. It competes with some of your higher end bourbons all the way across the board. And it's everywhere all the time, $30-$40, right? That's what the price is everywhere you go. And you can find it. Like, there is no shortage of that bottle everywhere. But a lot of people will pass it and go looking for where's Buffalo Trace? I got to find Buffalo Trace.
What was that bottle called again?
Bowman.
Bowman Brothers. I think it's Isaac Bowman Brothers is what it is. But if you just Google Bowman Brothers in Fredericksburg, Virginia, you'll come up with a distillery.
Cool.
They make a great bourbon. They make a
check that out.
But yeah, check them out.
Do you know if they distribute anywhere outside of Virginia?
They do.
Yeah, they do. They're pretty large.
Yeah. Because when we were in Tennessee, we saw them in some of the stores that we stopped at.
Man, when you were in Gatlinburg, I was in Gatlinburg in September of last year. And holy cow, there's a lot of breweries, but man, oh man.
There's also a lot of people.
A lot of people, but a lot of liquor. I mean, it's coming out of the hills. Yeah, you go every which way, and you're like, oh, there's a distillery here. There's a distillery here. Damn.
That's like their second gold rush over there. Is that they're working on moonshine and selling moonshine. Everywhere, every street corner, there's a distillery selling moonshine.
So I gotta ask now that we've brought up moonshine. So I live in Jefferson County, which is pretty much a hick town in St. Louis, Missouri. We love our moonshine out here in Illinois and Missouri. How do you feel about moonshine?
I love it. Once I had it.
Yeah.
Are you drinking it straight or are you mixing it?
No, we were drinking it straight. So I'd never had moonshine.
The flavored ones.
Okay,
no,
yes.
Sure ones too. Pickleback with anybody else. But no, we were in Sevierville.
Yes.
In Tennessee, and I had never had moonshine before, and I thought they were being cheap at first because you know how they give it to you in those little thimbles, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Why aren't they giving me more? Why isn't this a real shot? And then about 2 hours into it, I looked at Michael and I said, you better feed me right now. I'm just going to pass out, like wherever, right where we are. But I loved it. The flavored ones, as someone warned me though, those are the ones that sneak up on you. Right?
Absolutely.
We had one where it was like Kahlua and Bailey's had a baby.
Yes.
And it was just fantastic.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. But I have the straight one, and I was very happy wherever we were because they had the pickleback shot to go with it. And I could do that all day.
So I was also in Gatlinburg, but we also traveled to Sevierville, and there's a lot of places that sell. So Old Smoky is obviously a huge one, but there was a couple inside certain stores where you can get. Yeah, I think I brought back a bottle of it looked like chocolate milk, but it looked like moonshine, or it was moonshine, and I like to make different concoctions to piss people off because it tastes good, but it looks horrible. And moonshine would be the base, but it's like one of those things that you taste it and you're like, oh, this is pretty good, and then it hits you an hour later. You're like, man, what was I drinking? You're like, oh, you were drinking just straight moonshine. It was just mixed with other things. But
sure, yeah, I mean it is straight moonshine, and it is mixed with everything, and that is a little bit crazy.
Yeah, you do tastings of moonshine. Yeah, it catches up to you quick. You're like, wow, my mouth is on fire.
Which is crazy. I mean, when we went to Tennessee and did that was, again, I can't believe that we can do so many tastings there. It was amazing. In Virginia, it is much stricter. You must maintain less than 3 ounces total, I think is the rule, something like that. So it becomes a very short tasting when you go somewhere in Virginia.
Wow. Yeah. Tennessee they'll keep pouring you as long as you're still alive.
Yep.
Wait a minute, who's driving? You're not drinking. All right, the rest of you, line them up.
Yeah, present an ID, and then we'll kindly walk you out after. But
that's right.
I appreciate you guys stopping by the Beer Buzz podcast. If you could kind of give some shameless plugs and let people know where they can find you.
No, hey, thanks so much for having us. You can find us. Website is the barbook. I was going to say the beer buzz, thebarbook.co. We're on the Apple App Store at the Barbook. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Barbook. So check us out, like us, follow us, and we appreciate you guys so much for having us on.
Absolutely, yeah. Please do, download the bar book on the Apple App Store. Tool around there. What I do want to mention is it should be on for all you Android users. It will be on there very soon, so check back. And I'm sure the bar book will be posting on all their social medias about when the release of that will be going on. But as far as us, we appreciate everybody for listening to this podcast. We are the Beer Buzz Podcast. If you want to follow us on all of our social medias, we're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. If you want to send us an email, hey, well, you want to be on the podcast, you think you have something to add to the Beer Buzz, please do. We're answering emails left and right. We're on YouTube as well. I know you want to see our pretty faces and obviously the kind of people we get to have podcasts with. But like us, follow us, listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. Every week we drop a podcast. But until next time, folks, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.